Hey guys, this is John from the Nerdom of Podcast. I hope everyone's having a great day. Just want to give you something about this special episode we're dropping on Tuesday, September 13th. It's going to be a little bit different because we told everyone we were going to be doing one every other Tuesday. But because it's September 11th, we just want to have a conversation about that. There's not a lot of nerdy stuff going on in this episode, so if you came to listen to me and Joey talk about nerdy stuff, not really going to be the case this time. We're going to be talking a lot about politics and a lot about the country and how that relates to Christianity. And so if you've just had your fill of political talk or that's not something that interests you, you can just wait till next week till we drop another one. By the way, I know I sound funny. I'm on the laptop mic. Don't worry, the audio is much better than the actual conversation that Joey and I have. Hope everyone has a wonderful day, and I hope you enjoy the Nerdom of God podcast.
It makes me happy.
Yeah, it makes me happy too. So who would win in a street fight? Like without their suit, without any type of accoutrement, who would win? Captain America, Spider-Man, or Daredevil?
Captain America.
You really think that he'd be able to...
Well, like he already... Okay, so no shield. I still think Captain America. Because, like, does Spider-Man have his web shooters?
I would say yes for the simple reason of they're always on him. Like they're on the wrists. But like if you're out in the if he's out, he can wear a long sleeve shirt and cover up his web shooters.
I mean, Captain puts on a big jacket and he's covering his shield.
Yeah, I don't think that's how that works. Unless he's being drawn by Rob Liefeld and with the huge chest and the huge back, it might work.
Weird. He could hide between his pecs. Well, no, like whatever. I still think Captain in a street brawl because Spider-Man would if Daredevil doesn't have his sticks. Spider-Man could just like web shoot him, and I don't know.
Do you think it would be more along the lines that almost the fact that because Cap is such a good dude that Spider-Man and Daredevil might be the one that try to take, like they'd be maybe less likely to hit Cap in the face because he's such a good dude?
I don't know.
And
but
Matt Murdock's kind of a douche, and so is Peter Parker, but Cap's just like a real nice dude.
But Captain may be like, oh my gosh, this guy's blind. I can't touch a blind guy. And then Matt may play right into that. Like, help, I can't just reaching out. Like, where am I? And then once he gets a hold of him, just like Daredevil's him in the face.
I love how you use Daredevil as a verb.
Dude, I love Daredevil.
I know you do.
He's got a really good comic right now. Spider-Man just made an appearance. Spoilers.
Which one?
The Man with No Fear. He went to
no. Which Spider-Man?
Oh, like Peter Parker.
Yeah, how? Because he's in Hong Kong, or not Hong Kong. He's in Tokyo, right, or Shanghai.
Yeah,
good little one of those Asian countries.
Oh my gosh,
I'm a history teacher.
There's a bunch of them, buddy. I think he. I forget where they were actually. Now I think in Tokyo, maybe. But
it's
Peter Parker.
It's Shanghai because it's China. I remember now.
You remember now? Was it China? Okay, then Shanghai. I've been there.
I know you have. Yeah, you did that the same week of my wedding, so thanks.
Yeah, but, well, I had to think, travel internationally, go to this lame-ass wedding. Fine, I'll go international. I'm just joking. I actually felt really bad.
No, you didn't.
I did too, because then, for one, wasn't asked to be a groomsman, but then was like, hey, can you, like, be a, door holder or something? And then I was like...
An usher?
Yeah, sorry about you, but I'll be in... China.
It's still part of the wedding party. I don't know why you're complaining.
I don't know. I wanted to be best man. Whatever.
That was my brother.
If you ain't first, you're last, John. All right. If life has taught us anything.
Woo! You can't see that, but I was holding up my finger as number one, like Ricky Bobby.
That's one of my fantasy football team names. Is if you ain't first, you're last.
My fantasy football name is Odell No.
Odell No.
Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, I like it. Odell No. I'm in two leagues. One of them, I have Andrew Luck and Adrian Peterson, and I call my team Lucky Peters. So that one's been a lot of... I like that league better because it's more fun. Because if I lose, it's like I'm still cracking up every time I get on there.
So, would you say that fantasy football is a non-nerd's way of role-playing?
Oh, totally. Like, there's people who know more about their fantasy team than I do my D&D character.
Well, and like also, I feel like because let's be honest though, the nerdiest part of D&D is not is not role playing, because you do that crap all the time. You do it while you're telling stories. You do it while you're impersonating people. You do it when you say, if I had $1 million, I would do this, or people role play kind of all the time. But the nerdiest part of any type of like dice and paper RPG is the number crunch.
Just the fact that you're having modifiers and you're rolling dice and you have to know. Well, but also there's this part about my character that allows me to have 2 extra of this, and so that's probably the nerdiest part. Just most of us can.
But that's what fantasy football is. That's literally, you're taking all the role playing out of this thing, out of a fantasy game, which it literally has fantasy in the name, and just putting in the number crunch.
True, and the thing is, you are not affecting the outcome. Like, a player is basically, like, in fantasy football, every team member is the DM. It's because they're performing their own thing, and then from that total is how
they're the GM.
They're the game master.
The general manager. I'm referencing the fact of them.
Or that. Are the general managers in football?
Yes.
I thought it was just baseball.
No, it's general managers.
Oh, okay, cool.
General manager is basically anybody that is in charge of personnel. They have different names, but general manager is in charge of personnel and drafting and hiring. Yeah. American football for all of our international listeners, not soccer. I differentiate now. When I talk about soccer, I say football, not football. And then I say football for American football. Well,
like, when you realize that more people play what we call soccer in the world than, like, all of the American teams combined, baseball, basketball, football, it's like, yeah, guys, soccer. And I played soccer for several years. I really enjoy soccer. I love watching soccer. But, like, most Americans don't.
Well, I mean, I have an appreciation for soccer. I do not enjoy it because of who I was introduced to it by, and how I was forced to play football or soccer, I should say. But like, I have an appreciation for it. I understand why people like it. I personally don't. Like, I like to keep track of like World Cup, and I like to keep track of like the European leagues and MLS. I like to keep track of it, but I will never watch a soccer game. If there's nothing else on, maybe I'll kick it on and or kick back and forth and watch part of it. But they say that soccer players run like over 5 miles each match, and I'm like,
oh yeah, easily.
I'm like, no, I'm good.
It's like, no, bro, dude. I think I could, like, just maybe I'm a better American than you are, but like, if USA is playing, I'm gonna watch like them flip quarters. Like, so if it's soccer, I'm also down.
I don't know, man. I don't mind watching the World Cup's probably the only time I would tune into a soccer game. That would be probably about the only time. I mean, I do have a favorite international player. I keep track of him. I love Wayne Rooney for England.
Okay.
And he plays. He used to play for Manchester United. I don't know if he still does or not, but he used to play for Manchester United. So I mean, Wayne Rooney's pretty cool. He's a striker.
I don't know. I can dig it. I found myself being like, still, I enjoy them, but I'm like a passive participant because I don't actively follow anything, or even American sports. But but if it's on,
are you telling me you're not a hooligan?
No, I'm not a hooligan.
Man, it would. I mean,
can you imagine?
You would, but you do look like the whole look of a hooligan. I can imagine you in
Dude, if I was in Ireland right now with this red beard, it would be epic. I'd be burning buildings and destroying.
Changing your name. What would your Irish name be?
Oh, that's a good one. I don't know. I think like I would want to be called like Tab O'Malley.
Tab O'Malley.
Yeah, Tab O'Malley.
You sound like a jazz drummer that you don't want anybody to know, like Ron Swanson was on Parks and Rec, where he played Duke Silver. Tab O'Malley.
Tab O'Malley. Yeah, don't judge me. That's off the top of my head. Give me a break.
But yeah, I read a great humorous article where it talked about sports fans are just nerds and like they cosplay just like nerds do, and it shows like it's a cartoon. Mm-hmm. And on one side, it's got a guy dressed up as like Harry Potter going to a convention. On the other side, it's got a sports fan. They're dressed in their favorite player's jersey.
Yeah,
that's cosplay. That's all it is.
Well, yeah, ultimately, you're typically, and they'll paint their faces. You know, Green Bay Packer fans will wear the big cheese hats, and it's like, come on, like you're just enjoying something else, but you're enjoying it the same way that I enjoy what I'm doing.
Well, and this is where we loop back around to what we think nerddom is, and this is a great introduction to the Nerdom of God podcast. Welcome, by the way, you've just heard part of our conversation.
Heyo.
That'll continue on. This one is actually being recorded on September 11th, so you'll hear us reference that a little bit. A very hard time in our nation's history, and by the way, first time as a teacher I'll ever have a kid that there's no chance that they were. I'll have students that will have no chance of being born. First 8th grade class to ever do so. 9th grade, if they got held back, it was possible. Or if they got started a year later, it was possible they were alive when 9/11 happened. But this is the first year that 8th graders won.
Yeah, but even if they were alive, though, I mean,
they never remember it.
Yeah,
but
it's
now
like,
this is the first time it's technically history, and the fact that they weren't. And I put history in quotations. We really need to video this thing that way when I do this.
So everyone can see your quotations. Yeah.
This guy's an idiot, and they don't realize I'm being sarcastic or using hand motions to further explain my point.
Yeah, well, if you'd stop flipping me off, that'd be great right now. Sorry. I guess video would keep that from happening.
No, it's not happening. Everyone would just be able to appreciate it more.
True, thanks. Such is life.
You're number one.
Yeah, I'm number woo! Okay, I mean, whatever. But
you're the number one.
Do you remember
your rocker? You're Jonathan T. Rocker, because he was number one.
Oh,
Next Generation.
Yeah, Beardsley McBeardsman. He's the dude who always like propped his leg up on everything.
Yes.
And hip thrusted the camera. Yeah.
He was the Kirk of the Next Generation crew.
He was.
It's literally in that show. Kirk became the first mate, and then Spock became a navigator because that was Data's whole thing, mm-hmm. And then basically you have a gentler Dr. McCoy becomes the practical one. Was a little bit more refined and like from France instead of from Kentucky.
Yeah,
that's how that went down. It's weird that Jean-Luc Picard is like literally got the most English dude ever to play someone from the shores of France.
Dude, on an interview with him, I remember like they said he recorded the intro with a French accent. And that they called him back in like, that's not going to work. We're going to need to.
Well, why at that point would you not change the name if you realize that the French accent's not going to work?
Why even call him?
Literally, all you'd have to do is like John Picard.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to change Rocker's name because you'd have a freaking Ward family situation where there's a John, Johnny, Jonathan, and another John.
Is it John spelled like Jean-Luc Picard?
It's John. It's Jean-Luc Picard.
J-O?
Jean.
So change that to J-O and just John Picard, and it sounds American or British, I guess, rather than Jean-Luc Picard.
Do you have something in your mouth?
Peanut butter.
Do you have peanut butter in your mouth?
Jean-Luc Picard. Jean Douglas Franks.
By the way, if you hear a clicking sound, that's because that I'm clicking a pen like an a-hole, and so it's nothing wrong with our technical support.
We're gonna make that noise now. Man, John really sucks at podcasting.
Yeah. Good Lord, get it together. Be a professional, Franks.
Yeah, exactly.
We've wasted a solid 13 minutes of this podcast.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, let's stop doing that then.
What were we talking about beforehand?
Well, just to keep the ball rolling, you mentioned 9/11. You mentioned, you're a teacher. There's kids that aren't going to even have been alive when that happened. Do you remember where you were?
Yeah. I was in Miss Smith's algebra class. We just got done taking a test. This was way back in the day where news sites didn't stream any of their live newscasts. They just basically at best put up 30-second clips because we were in dial-up internet age. And I remember Miss Smith, we just got done taking a test, and I remember her looking nervous and clicking a whole lot. And then I realized later that she was refreshing the web page to see if they had added any more to the story. And I saw her run out of the classroom and the bell rang. That was first period. I went across the hallway to Miss Baker's, who was the librarian at the time, and she was a GT teacher, and we had a huge TV, a big screen TV in the library, and I actually saw live the second plane hit the second building. It had just, I don't know if I saw it live or it had just happened. It was one of the two, but I remember that walking in, asking what was a plane hit a tower, and then the second plane hit.
So were you an 8th grader then?
I think so, yes.
Okay, I think so, because I believe I was a 6th grader.
Because I would have...
So I think so.
Yeah, I would have been an 8th grader.
See, this is also crazy, because, like, of all days, I was homesick that day. And it's the weirdest thing to get... And I remember I actually was legitimate sick, and my older brother... just didn't want to go to school either because he knew I was going to stay home, and he was just like...
Well, you had a math test that day.
Well, then that's probably why. Then he was like, I don't feel good either, Mom, can I stay home with Joey? And she said, sure. So we stayed home, and I remember she got back in. She was going to stay the day with us, I think. And I was, like, all geared up on the couch thinking, what are you, in 6th grade, 12 years old?
Yeah.
I was like... SpongeBob for days. SpongeBob was on, and I remember either she got a phone call or she just like switched channels or something during a commercial, and I remember her basically getting really serious. And I'm 12, and I don't. All I'm thinking about is I'm sick. Let me watch my SpongeBob. And I remember her saying that like, boys, be quiet. Like something bad just happened, and then we're like not. Like I didn't think I was old enough really to understand at the time. Even though being a 6th grader, I was still kind of it was like 8 something in the morning, and watching it, just being like, what's going on? Not really understanding like we were being attacked, Americans were dying. I didn't know what the World Trade Center was at the time, and so like she was trying to explain to me like, no, this is like where a lot of the world's business meets, and this is where, and it was just really just such a somber morning, Well, but to be home, though, and like, because, I wasn't at school, I didn't go to the next class, or I was just there. We just watched it all the news updates, every bit of information. And then, did the plane in Pennsylvania go down the same day?
Yes, went down the same day. First tower was hit, second tower was hit, and about the time the second tower was hit, the third plane hit the Pentagon. And then you had the fourth plane in Pennsylvania that was supposedly heading towards the White House or Camp David. They never decided which one. And it went down in a field in Pennsylvania. Yeah. And so our experiences are different because you were very much a solid. You weren't by yourself, but it was very much more along the lines of you weren't around other people.
Yeah,
and I was at school, and of course, Mom. So the way it went down is that automatically, as soon as I hit that thing, I saw it hit the tower. Eventually, I got a hold of Uncle David, and I go, "Hey, what's going on?" And he said, "I know." I go, "Do you know what's going on, right?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I go, what do we need to do?" He goes, "I don't know." He goes, and he was going to the office. And so I stayed in the library for second period and just watched it on the big screen TV. And then about third or fourth period, I think before lunch, they called us into the gym for an assembly and explained to everybody what was going on. And at that time, we'd already had parents come pick their kids up, just being scared. And then we went out and we gathered around the flagpole and prayed and had a moment of silence. And then I remember after lunch, of course, Charlotte didn't have that many kids anyways, but I had 22 in my class. And by the time we got to the latter part of the day, there was only 7 or 8 of us left at the school. Half of them had been picked up.
Wow.
And of course, I couldn't go home. That didn't happen to me because Mom worked at the school.
Yeah, she was there.
But I remember driving back home and the gas station in front of the cell barn at Charlotte, cars being backed out because it only had 2 pumps, backed out both ways to the road for people wanting gas. And I didn't know this, but I talked to Uncle David later, and he talked about how proud he was of our 2 communities, Cord and Charlotte, because neither one of them gouged prices like they did in Batesville, Newport, and Jonesboro. None of them raised their gas prices when people were panicking and getting gas. And then also, I think one or both of those stores stayed open an hour late till everyone got the gas they needed.
Yeah, I know Cord did. Yeah.
And so, it was just a weird time, and I tried to explain to my kids, and we're going to talk more about it tomorrow because I want them to be able to kind of, those who don't know anything about it, to kind of experience what they see on the TV or see on Facebook or whatever, and then us talk about it tomorrow. in class, but it's just weird because none of my kids, since I've started, remember what life was like before 9/11. Mm-hmm. And it's a clear delineation. Like, you'd ask anybody before 9/11 what a terrorist looked like, and yeah, some of them are going to say someone, the stereotypical terrorist is, some of them will give, descriptions of someone who's Arabic and who's Muslim, which I'm not advocating that at all, but a lot of people do have that image when you say terrorist, is it's radical Islamic terrorism, not any other type of terrorism. And so a lot of people think of that, but if you'd ask someone before 9/11 what a terrorist looked like, some of them was going to say a white dude in military fatigues and an assault rifle who hides out in the woods and hates the government because of the Oklahoma City bombing with Timothy McVeigh, because they were a government separatist group that he was representing.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of weird because how that changed completely.
It changed so much. I mean, and you mentioned that what probably people would think of a terrorist now. And I think so much of that has to do with, Osama bin Laden was on TV for 10 years. Mm-hmm. We were seeing pictures of him and little video clips of him saying he orchestrated everything, and until essentially, until we finally hunted him down. Yeah, dude, it's hard stuff. It makes you, I saw on social media this morning, getting ready, people were kind of already reposting things they'd posted and been like, never forget. And I was really sitting there just trying to think, what does that mean, though? Never forget. And then there's an image of, the firefighters holding the flag or the smoke rolling out. And it's a weird thing to try to think about, to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
What does it even mean now? What does 9/11 mean anything to some of these kids?
Yeah.
Because, I feel like to us, it definitely, it just means a lot. It means that there's so much of our lives. Because, I fly pretty often. I mean, and from what I'm told, flying is so different now than it was before then.
Well, you talk about, there's a great documentary I watched that they put out basically chronicling basically every step that happened. And the guys that boarded the plane, from the time that they went in to check in to the time that they were actually put into the plane, 30 minutes. 30 minutes of them. That's them showing up at the airport, getting their baggage checked, going through security, and I put that in quotation marks, right, and then waiting on for the terminal to open so they can get in the plane. 30 minutes.
Wow. And now, goodness, it's...
Yeah. I've never flown before, but I've heard of people talk about it, and I've seen, everyone kind of knows what you have to do, and you go through the metal detectors, and you take off your shoes, and you empty all your pockets, and you're wanded, and you can't have liquids, and you can't do this, and you can't do that, and...
Even if you get... through, sometimes they can still say, if it doesn't give you just a totally clean bill, they'll still pull you to the side and touch your hands with this little wand. I'm not sure what it does, if there's residual something they're looking for, or they'll wand you again, or they'll ask you to go to the back. I mean, it's just it's so invasive and intensive.
Well, and also you do know that the TSA did a security check on themselves, or someone did a security check, and basically 80% of of what would have been violations got through anyways.
Really?
Yeah, and so
they must have had lazier.
People
than I've had.
Well, it did intensive checks and everything else though. Literally, people got through. They've done this. They did this at several different airports. Just had random people run through that either had items on them that were forbidden, or had they had touched something that should have set off the bomb polymer test. That
yeah,
stuff like that, and 80% of them were able to get through no problem.
Wow.
And so, I don't know how much that does. And of course, the libertarian in me is don't invade my security, leave me the heck alone, or my privacy, not security. Don't invade my privacy. I'll take my chances. I don't have to go through this. I shouldn't have to go through this. But at the same time, I understand. It's more along the lines of, it doesn't really stop a whole lot, but it makes people feel safer.
It makes people feel safer, and what it
goes back to Fight Club. Oxygen really doesn't help.
Yeah, oxygen gets people high, and so what is it?
The plane is going down, and it goes, look at them, peaceful as Hindu cows.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's never had the oxygen pop out on a plane for me.
Well, that's good, because that meant there's a really bad emergency, or there's a technical failure that is caused.
Yeah, if it pops out, I'm grabbing that sucker regardless, even if we're cruising along fine. I'm like, Brad Pitt said I should breathe this. No, but yeah, it's definitely it's changed so much. So just the 9/11 and it, and I want it to matter. I want it to mean something because I feel like there's, especially like in the last 5 years, the world's gotten so weird. America, I should say, has gotten so weird and politically correct, which we hear all about all the time, and it's so frustrating because it's like, no, it's okay for us to be mad and defensive and proud of our nation and wanting to feel safe. And I feel like sometimes I don't want to see 9/11, and I guarantee you, and I'm sure there's people who just like think that even trying to remember it is somehow disrespectful to a culture or a creed or race or something.
Yeah, I don't see any problem with. I want to remember it, and it should be remembered. But I'm also afraid, as both an American and as a Christian, that it's going to be remembered for the wrong things. Especially as a believer, 9/11 should never be remembered more for the fact that it was an attack on America more than how many people died and how many people had to experience grief and suffering and sickness because of all the stuff that happened. Like, that should always be number one. And we should be, my opinion is, and you might disagree, that we should be able to differentiate. That should be a separate thing than the fact there was an attack on our nation.
Oh, I agree. You know what I mean? Agree completely, because something that we can't lose or forget is the fact that so much unity happened right after the attack. So many, Baton Rouge just was majorly flooded, right? Yeah. And you see people from all over the nation driving lumber, they're driving waters, they're driving people giving of their time and of their resources, and you saw that to the nth degree after 9/11. People were like, what can we do? How can we serve? How can we help? Where can we house people? And so I think like that sense of like unity, it's just such a testament to God's grace and the fact that something horrible happened, and the fact that, and I think anytime, and at the time I didn't know this, but now anytime there's any type of sorrow or mourning or grief that I'm feeling, I'm reminded that God is good and God is in control. And like those two things, if you can always just kind of keep in mind that, hey, God is good, God is in control, then even the 9/11s of the world they don't cause us to lose hope.
Yeah. And, 9/11 and everything else that's come along after this, and especially all the things we have going on, I have a lot of thoughts that maybe run against what most mainstream Christians think or what most American Christians think. I really think that especially the American church, one of the unseen and kind of untalked about sins that we have in our life is nationalism. The idea of combining one's country with the idea of God and putting those things two together.
Yeah, elevating that nationalism to even patriotism to a point where... Yeah.
And we've talked about this. Like, I don't like seeing an American flag in a church. It bothers me. Like, I don't like it. Okay. Because, and of course, I hate the Christian flag too. I hate the idea of us having a flag.
Oh, it's lame sauce.
Yeah. But I really...
Well, but I mean, Jesus even said, hey, like even when the Pharisees tried to dupe him on taxes, and he was like, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Like even he took a mindset of like, hey guys, like chill the freak out with your nationalist agenda or the problems that you're trying to like raise. Like, I do agree that there should be a separation. Like, but it's something that you can, because then even Paul, being a Roman citizen, it granted him a lot of freedoms. But like ultimately, he forsake everything that identified him before Christ and found only himself in Christ.
Well, and I have people in my life, and I'm not going to call them out by name, that really freak out over stuff political, and I'm like, listen, this is my citizenship doesn't belong here. My citizenship is the kingdom of God that has come and is continuing to come. And I think a lot of Christians have a problem with that. They either put their status as an American on par with their status as a member or a citizen of the kingdom of God, or sometimes they even put it above it. Or they combine those two together, that America represents the kingdom of God. And people don't understand is that, they talk about how much worse America is off now, but then, those same people don't count slavery as a harsh sin. You're like, no, we had 6 million people enslaved for the first quarter to half of this country's history. Like, that has to count as sin. It needs to be counted as sinful. And people don't.
No, true. And I don't know if it's just being raised in that, like, that nationalism, but I do agree that You can have pride in like your nation and in your country, but like not to the point where you're sacrificing or equating anything spiritual with your like nationalism.
Yeah, and what I'm trying to say by this is that part of that nationalism comes from an America that never was. People say, well, America used to be this and we used to be godly. No, America has never been godly. Anything that's been set up by man has never been godly, including the government systems that's been used to run it. And, you can talk about slavery, you can talk about racism and segregation afterwards, you can talk about the fact of political manipulation in order to find out of waging unjust wars to stop another political ideology. You can talk about, you can talk about tons of different things about how America wasn't holy at any point in its existence. Mm-hmm. But we look back and we want to say that at one point America was good. I mean, even if you track all the way back to the Pilgrims who came here because they wanted to get away from what they viewed as the evils of Europe, what is the first thing they start doing automatically? They devolve down into claiming everybody's a witch and killing people off because they're left-handed or because they're because they acted weird or because a
little eccentric or a little
and so like. Even going back to what should have been the holiest, and I put that in quotation marks, that America's ever been with the Pilgrims, where we weren't.
Oh, yeah, I mean, and the thing is, though, even if someone like came up and was like, we need to make America great again, like, you could just point and say, okay, like, when was it great?
Yeah.
Like, point, because I was a biology major, right? And so I'm a big science guy. I love data and statistics, and I love to I love being like, okay, like show me the proof.
Yeah,
I'm a big analytical type person in that mindset where like don't post something on Facebook that says 80% of this blah blah. No, show me that study, show me the numbers, show me like, because you can't just say things. And the problem with the internet has granted people to have a voice who maybe not maybe aren't the I guess sometimes the loudest people are the most least informed. Where sometimes
the louder I shout, the less information I have to have.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's kind of frustrating for me. So yeah, no, I see what you're saying as far as that goes. But I just hope that 9/11 can just be we can have a somber remembrance that it essentially like reminds us of the fall ultimately, and even that day, even the story, because I think every story follows God's story. There's the creation, there's the fall, there's redemption, and there's restoration, and even in that, like the creation being, hey, it was a beautiful September morning, and then there was a fall, there was damage, there was pain, there was suffering that came in, but then there was redemption, there was people, there was unity, there were people who came to know God because of that. And
church attendance spiked to double for 4 months afterwards though.
Yeah, people started immediately rushing to God,
and of course it was religious services across the board. I mean,
it wasn't like the Catholic services really spiked. It was like any type of
religious in general. The synagogues were full from what I've heard, and in different places that attendance was up. And but yeah, one thing I do want to talk about real quick about 9/11 is something I found interesting, kind of backing away from the overall importance, is that I don't remember 9/11 without, when I visualize 9/11 in my head, I can't do it. I can't pull back a memory without having the news outline, like the news, like on a news site, how a news channel, how they have the layout, how they have the runner at the bottom, and the stuff at the top about what's. I can't remember 9/11 without having that stuff on there, because that's the only way you experienced it was through the television.
True, yeah.
And so I think it's interesting about how literally the way we look at different events, and 9/11 is a perfect example. And also through now we even get more examples of, through Facebook and through social media and stuff, how I'm viewing an historical event through the lens of someone else. That's the only way that information was disseminated down to me. And so, my mind is automatically tied to the ABC News logo at the bottom left, and later on when they show the replays, on CNN and stuff, the replays there. That's the only way I know it. And just like the Paris attack and the Paris terrorist attack last year, the only way I remember it is seeing tweets and posts on Facebook and everything else. It's just so crazy how technology's become our lens for so much. which is a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. I would say mostly it should be benign in the fact that it doesn't matter, but it can really easily be twisted to evil.
Oh, if you're getting like just the facts and just the happening, then it's great and benign and helpful. If it's the other lens, I'd say not so much. Like I noticed, I was talking to a coworker about this recently, and I was like, you check. And even the ABCs and the Foxes and the CNNs, and like now, some of their news postings are essentially retweeting. Like if you look at a bomb in Turkey or the Philippines or whatever, what you then see is under that is them having the cutout of tweets that have been tweeted, and they're putting it on their site, because what you can now have, and that we've never had, is not a journalist providing you what's actually happening on the ground. And that just blows my mind. And that's what I was talking to my coworker about, just the fact that now someone just like me, it's like, imagine being at an airport and something happening, and then you're saying like, I could just immediately be tweeting to, and then that way, however many followers I have are seeing, okay, Joey is in this location, these are the people he's seen, this is what's just happening, and so you get probably even more details than we ever have before, because you're getting someone like there on the ground, or they're in the bathroom, like in the Orlando shooting, someone was like texting his mom and saying like, he's in here, I see his boots, this is that, and like that never would have happened before because he didn't survive. And how else would he have ever communicated to his mother?
Well, yeah, and I tell my kids all the time, we talk about primary sources and secondary sources in history, I go, and there's going to be in about 100 years, a young adult's going to be writing his dissertation, and he's going to be talking about youth that live in the Mid-South of the United States. And I go, he's going to have access to databases and everything else, of Facebook posts, Instagram posts, tweets, and literally there's going to be one that says, quote, get spelled G-I-T, good, G-U-D, hashtag Dark Souls, hashtag noob, hashtag leet, and then there's going to be the parentheses out telling what that was. I go, guys, and that's what you're typing out for primary sources later on, because you don't write in diaries no more. You don't write letters to the editor in newspaper anymore. He's going to be looking through your tweets. He's going to be looking through your Instagram posts. Yeah. He's going to be looking through your Facebook posts. Just remember that this is one day going to be the study of historical research, and that some poor grad student is going to have to dig through your freaking post to look for things that could have happened. Like, what was the reaction to the Paris attacks in the United States? And there's a chance he's going to see your stupid picture with the French flag filter on Facebook that everyone put up after the Paris attacks, and then he's going to have to read your really half-informed post about Paris, which some of you probably thought he was talking about Paris, Texas.
Or Tennessee, and not even really know where Paris is or anything about the culture or anything.
And my kids, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah. I go, as a historian, I've poured through like diary entries and things like that, and this is how you keep diaries. It's through this. This is how you keep your day-to-day occurrences. It's through your social media stuff.
Yeah, it's the equivalent now, and it's trippy, and it's kind of depressing actually. Like, it makes me really. I've gotten off social media before, and I've gotten back on, and I just started watching the show Mr. Robot.
I want to watch it. I ain't had a chance to. By the way, Kevin, I'm going to watch it. Kevin Watts, if you're listening to this, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to take your advice. I'm sorry that I haven't had a chance to yet, but you're a wonderful human being, and we miss you terribly here in Arkansas.
I don't. He left us. Forget Kevin. I'm just joking.
I want to watch Mr. Robot. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, yeah. Well, Kevin, I have watched about most of the first season, and I got to say, it's fantastic. Really well done. But what's interesting about it is the main character. He's a hacker, and what he does immediately if he meets somebody is he like hacks into all their stuff and reads their emails and looks at their Facebooks and their Instagrams, and it kind of blows my mind, because then what I'm realizing is like, well, for one, not that anyone gives a crap about anything I've ever posted, but like you're talking about, like in 100 years if someone's looking back at, okay, just this is a good source of some information of someone in the South and blah blah blah, well then I want it to not look like a fool. I want to not that like what we say we should always be worried about, like what people are going to think or see or view it as. But like you just said, like, get Dark Souls, woo! woo! Like, that's not what I want to be communicating. Like, if there's an attack on Paris or a national event or an election, I've always not talked about politics ever. But it makes me wonder, like, man, what if I had an informed opinion, but I'm also kind of the naysayer who's watched Fight Club too many times, who's just like, yeah, nobody cares though about your thoughts and your opinions, and that's what is it on Sherlock Holmes, on the new one with Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman, like, he's writing a blog. He's, what are you doing? He's like, I'm writing a blog about, like, our stories, and he's like, why would you suffer your opinions on the world? And it's like, I kind of line up more with that.
Yeah, but also in that same scene though, he goes, "How many views do we have?" or whatever, and he tells him, he goes, "Why isn't anybody?" And Sherlock even says to that point though, "Why isn't anybody reading my blog?" And he goes, "Because your blog is just the catalog of how many seeds or something like that." He goes, "Or what type of plant has this type of seeds?" He said, and no one wants to hear that. It's so, I mean, even playing off of that, and
well, true, yeah.
I totally agree. And we're kind of over we're not going to get to what we plan on talking about today, which I think that's fine.
We can talk about it later.
Yeah, that's the great thing about podcasts. We can release this thing 2 weeks later, so the same conversation going, and you will not know, viewing public.
If either of us are ever sick, that will be a really bad telltale of like, oh, these are two were done together. He kept coughing in that episode. No,
why does everyone have a voice synthesizer on this one?
Where's that pen go?
But just what you said about Fight Club, isn't it crazy though that where most of our philosophical musings come from now is from media?
Oh,
like, because here's the thing though, the Southern Fight Club, that's not a new thing. Like the writer of Fight Club, whose name I can't remember, right now. He didn't come up with that on his own. That is very much a nihilistic, very philosophical thing that's been going on since Nietzsche. Yeah. But where do we get that distilled down into? It's from media.
Yeah, from a 2-hour movie that we can just sit and enjoy instead of having to read all of Nietzsche's work.
Yeah, which is really nice in a way, but also it's scary because we're only getting the part that's cherry picked that makes a good movie, not is what is actually, because you read Nietzsche and he's very much true. You stare into the abyss, and the abyss stares into you, and the abyss is Nietzsche's work. Oh, gosh. John Michael, this one's for you.
Yeah.
But I think that's interesting, though, is that, and it's also sad because, I mean, I'm right at the end of it. Like, I try to read Soren Kierkegaard stuff to try to get an idea about humanism and existentialism and stuff like that. And I tried reading Kierkegaard stuff and blew my mind, and I had to put it down to give me a headache. And that's really sad, though, because I like Kierkegaard. I like what I know about his stuff, but it's had to been disseminated to me by someone else.
Right.
And that's the reason why you need people like a C.S. Lewis that's able to disseminate down deep theological ideas into very practical things. But now, even so, that's still disseminated down even further through social media. Like, we have these big ideas that philosophers and thinkers and historians and everyone else talked about, and scientists, and then they're disseminated down through writers like C.S. Lewis or an author or someone like that. And then now what's even crazier is that they're disseminated down even further into 160 characters or less Twitter or a tweet or an Instagram picture that's a meme. That's just, it's crazy to me. And it's sad at the same time because we're teaching people the appearance of being intelligent or the appearance of being knowledgeable without actually making them do the work to become knowledgeable and gain that appearance.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you can even spin that into Christian life. You can see the only people, something that someone might post on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter is playing in the worship band, or hey, we're handing out, ladling out soup to the homeless, or that's all they put on there. And yeah, that might occupy 2 nights out of their week, but they appear like a super spiritual person, but but because of the fact of the lesser connection, it can lead to people only being Facebook Christians or Facebook devout.
Oh, dude!
And so you don't have to, as much as you maybe used to in the past, have to work for that appearance.
Because now all that information is like tertiary now. I mean, you're communicating with a device, and then someone else is looking at their device, and so and what they, like you said, the appearance that you're you're pretty on. Yeah, social media has allowed us to wear masks more than I think ever before, because ultimately now people can literally, like you said, people can have opinions of people they've never met that they're getting daily updates on.
Yeah.
Where used to maybe it was like in a newspaper, or a friend of a friend told you about so and so, or you maybe got a letter from. But now it's like, no, you can see, like you're saying, if someone's retweeting, even if it wasn't something like on a Christian lens, if it was something from every time maybe when they go to the gym or they talk about their eating, blah 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 blah. But like then you meet them face to face and they're out of shape.
Yeah.
And, and it's like, what? I thought that all you talk about is bananas and treadmill time and getting swole, but it's because like people now can lie easier than they ever have before.
Social media has allowed for greater community, and also it's allowed for community that's a mile wide and an inch deep instead of an inch deep and an inch wide and a mile deep. Yeah. And so it allows for it's great in the fact that like when social media is done right and everybody's honest on social media, it can lead to really good community, because it surpasses time, it surpasses distance, it surpasses even language barriers. Yeah. It surpasses time zones. Social media is great. I mean, even something as dumb and as stationary as a D&D group benefit from technology, because we have two people from Florida Skype in and play with us. I mean, true. I mean, even to that point, the connect. It's so easy for us to connect, but also it's so easier for us to make the appearances of connections and not any at all. I mean, you can tailor your Facebook to see who shows up first. You can tailor your Instagram to see who actually shows up and still be friends or followers. Hashtags allow you to differentiate between which political party you want. And this goes back to our kind of what we originally talked about, is that even today you could see through social media, it's really clear, like with the Republicans, what happens when you hitch your religion to politics. Because you're seeing people who voted Republican their entire life because they thought that was the Christian thing to do, and now you have someone like Trump who is clearly not. And whatever, if you're a Trump supporter, I'm sorry, there's not any appearance. He is not bearing good fruit, and that's what we're supposed to judge as Christians. Like I don't, and of course Hillary isn't either. I'm not saying that at all, but there is no even appearance of bearing good fruit.
Right, like don't be duped by the tagline that he might put on a tweet.
Yeah.
And so, it's interesting. It's interesting.
If you were hoping for Star Wars talk or fart jokes,
this is weird. It was like we were thinking about. I don't know how long we've been talking, but
48 minutes.
Wowzers! It was like we had some shows and some comic books that we were going to talk about, and now we just talked about philosophy and somberness and 9/11 and jeez Louise.
I can't believe that you talked about how 9/11 was representative of the fall. It's kind of poor taste.
How is that poor taste? That's like spot on, bro. And that's not in any disrespect whatsoever.
Yeah, I know, but still,
you can't try to make this bad.
I'm not going to make it bad, but it was just interesting, though, that almost the metaphor lined up too much to where it almost strayed into feeling like parody just for a second.
Oh my gosh. It's been a long time. Give me a break. But like
between the fall of the towers and the fall of mankind. I mean, it is poignant to an extent, but if you're not careful, it might seem like parody. I know. No, I'm not saying if someone else had handled it. I'm not saying you.
Well, no, but I think I go back to like every story in one way or another. Every story, and so even that story somehow has those parallels, or it's a shadow of God's story. I mean, think about your movies. I mean, The Lion King, bro. I mean, there is a creation, everything's sunny and nice and happy and fun, and then guess what? There's death and destruction and loneliness and suffering, and then there's redemption, and then what happens at the freaking end of The Lion King? Everything comes to life now. All the animals are happy. Well, so you're seeing that.
Even stuff that's even more complicated storytelling. We're going to wind this down real quick.
You just click the button, bro.
I know. That even stuff that has more complicated storytelling than that, though, even takes pieces of that.
Totally.
Like for instance, I've just thought of like one of the darkest examples I can think of, like Sons of Anarchy. Sons of Anarchy comes in and only focuses in on the fall and failed redemption of people. Right. You know what I mean? And that the redemption story it tells is very much a dark shadow of the gospel. Because, I mean, spoiler alert, by the way, for Sons of Anarchy. But, like, for instance, the last scene of him holding his hands out like he's on a cross, and then when he gets hit by the truck, the blood combining with the bread. And
dude, it's but like, that's the thing, though. Like, that's what I meant about, like, every story.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is you're seeing a shadow of, you may not see the full scope of the story.
I was giving the antithesis of, like, The Lion King, which is a really clear, like, very much happy, broken... The fight between good and evil, and then restoration. But even stuff like that doesn't show true restoration, or that is dark, has some sort of redemptive element in it.
And I think
even if it's a very dark shadow of that, it's there.
Yep. Well, I can keep talking. You can shut it off. It's
All right. Do you have anything else you want to say about 9/11 or about how technology influenced the way we view things, including philosophy, or how it affects community? Or
not that anyone would care to hear.
Yeah. Fight Club.